You're listening to the Dudes and Dads Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Welcome back, Joel. Episode 17.
It's good to be here, Andy, and yet, like nomadic podcasters, we have journeyed into a new studio space.
Once again, we are in a new studio space.
I want to say this is our forever home.
I'm counting.
We've rented a few spots, but now we feel like we've made the big purchase, and we can really settle down. we make and start having a family. We can really settle down to where we are.
That's almost a nice transition into our topic tonight. But
hey, fantastic, beautiful.
You can wait though.
I will.
You can wait because we are going to be talking. First, we want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you are not a Patreon supporter, you can join us at dudesanddatspodcast.com/support, and we would love to have you support the show if you'd love to do that. So,
yeah. Thank you so much for those of you that have hopped on that bandwagon, and we would love to have more. So feel free to support this podcast.
And Joel, we would also like to thank
Yes, we would.
Bender Automotive.
Oh, Bender Automotive. The good folks over there at Bender Automotive in the beautiful town. I guess technically it's Emma.
It is Emma, yes.
But Topeka, Emma area.
We want to thank them because we've both had vehicles worked on this week.
So we were in bad shape. We needed a place that could get us in a reasonable amount of time. Now, because people are picking up on the fact that Bender Automotive is definitely a place that has quality service, their clientele is picking up, which we're super thrilled because they've just started.
Absolutely.
And so if you've got car needs and you need somebody that's like going to be like that reliable mechanic that just like soothes your heart at the end of the day, Bender Automotive. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know. Sometimes you drop your car off at a place and you're like, I don't know if this man knows or these people know anything about
if
fixing
my car
cars.
is going to come back in
Will
one
it come
piece
back?
or not. Yeah.
One piece or not. So
but it definitely did. I want to thank Ryan for that. He did an awesome job.
Oh, Ryan, you're a good man. We appreciate you guys so much. Ryan and his is Mary Ellen in the office?
She called me the other day.
She does. Yeah. She calls me. She sends me emails. So we thank both of you so much.
Well, I mentioned that you had a beautiful segue about talking about family.
Yep.
And that is because tonight we have our wives on the show.
The wives. You know, Andy, sometimes you take your life in your own hands. And tonight, the people that know us the best are here in this room. And I feel like this is going to go one way or the other. It's going to go really, really great, or
we're sleeping on the couches in our new studio.
That's exactly correct. So we'll see how it goes.
And the reason that I'm playing this epic music in the background is because this is a Dudettes of the Square Table. It's our first episode.
Wives edition.
Wives edition. We've done Dudes of the Square Table before, but now we're going to the Dudettes.
I'm far more nervous about this one than the Dudes of the Square Table.
Me too.
I'm glad you feel the same way.
Because our Dudes of the Square Table was Gen Xers, and
it was fun. Yeah. It was like we felt like
the old person. I felt like I was the old person.
You felt like the old person in the room, like you were not going to be thrown for a loop. Here, anything is possible.
It is. So we want to welcome Julie and Jackie to our show. Welcome, guys.
Hello. Hi.
Beautiful. They're naturals already. I can tell. Podcast ready, as Andy and I like to say.
So
yeah. So here's the deal. Every time that Andy and I get into the studio here, and our ability to get in studio, to do this podcast, to even have the opportunity to have a creative outlet, is directly related to both these women sitting at this table, because usually we have to, unlike today, today's a little bit of a off the normal beaten path as far as when we're recording, but normally it's late at night, we're leaving our homes after bedtime or right around bedtime and coming into the studio, and these lovely ladies make it possible. So thanks, guys, for allowing us to do all the previous episodes. Hopefully this will not be the last one we ever do. Right. So I feel like we should just on this episode, we just want to basically talk about, we want to talk about our relationships with our wives, how we even got into relationships with our wives, how we haven't gotten out of relationships with our wives, all of that.
Those are all
stuff.
good topics.
All good topics. So first and foremost, want to, and maybe it's just helpful for the viewers, I think, or listeners, well, viewers and listeners, they're both watching and listening, is to even have the discussion about, because I like asking first how Julie and Andy met and how they decided that marriage was a thing that they were going to do.
I'm going to let Julie take this one.
I love
because
I love when she tells the story, but I think she tells the story
it better than I do.
It's good.
No pressure.
So, Julie, how did you and Andy get connected, shall we say?
Okay. So, Andy and I have known each other for a very, very long time. I had two best friends growing up. When I went to college, I went to college with one of those best friends who also is a female, and the other best friend, who is a male, stayed back home to go to college back here and came to visit me one weekend and then kept coming back weekend after weekend after weekend. And before I knew it, he was hanging out with my roommate, the female best friend, more than he was hanging out with me. And then he transferred schools the next semester. And before I really could say anything or do anything about it, I was the third wheel, and which is great, actually.
We love you, Corey and Amanda.
Corey and Amanda, we love you.
Thanks for the third wheel move. That's nice.
Right. That's right. But that then put me into a position of not having, weekends with anybody but me. And so Corey had a cousin who was Andy, who came and kind of did the same thing, came to the school that we were attending one weekend and just kept coming back every weekend after that. Yeah, so that's how we grew up knowing of each other, but
I'm 5 years older than she is, though, so.
Right.
Which translates to he was a jerk when we were younger.
Hey now.
I don't think you were intentionally. You were just a teenager when I would have been a preteen, and
right. So your early on perception of each other was interesting. Gotcha.
Yeah. So when I knew he was coming to visit, everybody was making a big deal about it, and I was not for it because I just remembered him as not being super impressive.
And Julie, I know you'll know what I'm talking about. Like in general, like you have people, like when you're young, you have people capture your mind a certain way.
For sure.
And then like as I run into people that like so Julie and I went to high school together. So as I run into people that we went to high school with years later, they're significantly, and it's no surprise, they're significantly different people.
Yeah.
But when you meet them, you're like, you were the guy that said that terrible thing about me when I was whatever, and it's kind of like hard to move on from that. So basically Julie's at college. Andy, what were you doing at the time, Andy, in that season of life?
Well, because I'm way older than she is.
As we've pointed out.
I was working.
Yeah.
I had a job. I lived in Illinois at the time, and so I was making a nice drive to Indiana every weekend.
Wow.
To
how far was that?
To quote, visit Corey.
Yeah. So how far was that drive?
Like 2.5 hours.
So that's
3.
I think it was 3.5.
3.5 hours. So
So that's a commitment of time.
Yes.
That should have said something right there, I suppose.
I was visiting my cousin.
Now, Andy, were you like strategic from early on in all of this, or was it just like Julie says yes? Hard head shake yes.
He was far more strategic than I was. I was not for a relationship. I had just gotten out of a relationship and didn't want to have anything to do with a dude.
Right.
For a while. I had decided I wasn't going to date until I had graduated from college, and here comes this guy like 6 weeks later. So
we didn't date for a while though.
He was definitely more strategic and putting in the effort.
Props to you, Andy. Okay, so Julie, you ended up not so you were down at Indiana Wesleyan. You ended up not staying at IWO.
Right.
Is that all was that driven by the choice with the relationship?
Yes. So for as long as I had dug my heels in about being in a relationship, once then we decided that that's what the Lord was calling us to. Our relationship progressed pretty fast. So it was within a year that we started dating, then that we were married. And our goal was that I would stay at school and Andy would find a job somewhere close by. And that was just not the reality of it. And so in order for us to survive, he had to have a job. And where better than Elkhart County, Indiana, where you can work in a factory and build RVs. So luckily that didn't last long, but we both had to move home. And so I left school at that point.
Yeah. Okay. I'm piecing this all together in my own personal timeline of like around when that would have been. But okay.
Okay.
So
let's talk about you a little bit. Let's
Yeah,
talk about the
thank you.
beginning part of you and Jackie. Let's talk about that. How did you guys meet?
I love this story because it's filled with gosh, there's so many twists and turns. It's a real novel. But so Jackie, though Jackie's only 6 months older than I am, she was 2 years ahead in school, and we would have met or known of each other when early on in my high school.
You would have been
Freshman.
Right,
and you would have been a junior. And then Jackie dated a friend of mine. That relationship ended. And I'll let Jackie take the rest of the story. We tell this story every once in a while to like our high school students, and it's like they think it's amazing because it's so dramatic. But just go ahead, honey. Let's own the rest of the process here. What would you say happened after that?
So, in typical high school fashion, this guy that I had been dating for 2 years or something, so intense and dramatic. He broke up with me to get back with his previous girlfriend. So in a revenge move, I thought that dating his friend would be the best case scenario. And then they were not friends for quite some time after that. A couple years.
Yeah.
Maybe longer than that. It's hard to say.
It was probably never really the same after that.
Probably true.
Yeah.
So we had been dating probably for about 6 months, and I was like, oh, I probably should tell Joel that I really was just dating him. Things had been getting more serious. I was a senior when we had started dating.
Correct. Yeah.
So
I went to Jackie's. We have a lovely senior Penn High School senior prom photos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we went to prom together because the person I was supposed to go with was shorter than me, and that clearly could not stand. So obviously I just want to share that my wife really is a wonderful person, and let's put this in the context of her being a teenage girl.
Well, and she picked. I mean, you're tall yourself, so I mean that was a nice match.
Right. It worked out okay.
So we had gone to prom, and then about 6 months later, I felt like probably should tell Joel that I really only had started dating him as this revenge move. And it worked. I mean, beautifully, obviously, since they were no longer friends, it had.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Not that that's a good mission to have, but typical high school kind of relationship there. I had gone off to college. We dated on and off through my first 2 years of college.
Yeah. My commitment level was not really super strong, especially, I mean, I should say the big challenge was that when I went off to college, then, we were 2.5 hours apart from each other. And, it was like, I had not dated many girls in high school or anything like that. And then all of a sudden you get into college where there's kind of like more fish in the sea, and you're like thinking like, oh, there's all these, it's like, I've never really thought about any other options other than this. And turns out, because of God's good grace to us, like really the other options that I pursued, eventually did show like this, they were not good fits for me. So I, after my freshman year, yes. Is that right? After my freshman year of college?
So at some point during your freshman year, we would have broken up, and I kind of like Julie was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with these relationships. I'm going to just like focus on myself and date Jesus for a while, something like that. And just really wanted to find who I was as my own person, instead of being like connected to somebody. Because up until that point, I probably dated a lot of people in high school, compared to Joel. And then a couple of long-term relationships through high school, which are high school relationships. But when you're in high school, it feels very intense and very real. So then it was like, I'm just going to take some time to just like be my own person, do my own thing. So did that for a while. Joel's brother would still like reach out to me and be like, he's dating these terrible women. He says he's going to marry them. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, sitting back in my apartment by myself, and I'm like, dude, this is not my problem. This is your problem. So I still kind of loosely knew what was going on in his life outside of that. And then I had gone, I think it was the summer. It would have been the summer after Joel's freshman year. I'd gone to visit his parents on the 4th of July. I knew that he had a girlfriend, so I figured this was like a safe time to go like stop by and see his parents.
Because you figured I would not be around.
Right, because wouldn't you be with your girlfriend on the 4th of July?
Unbeknownst to Jackie, we had just ended the relationship.
Right. So I was like still pretty into Joel. Like, there were some experiences that I had in that time that I could feel kind of God was pushing me towards that, maintaining that relationship or keeping that door open. So then when I like pull into his parents' driveway and he's like sitting on the porch, I can't like back out because
it's a reasonably long driveway. It
Right.
would have been real obvious and real
like,
awkward.
clearly he knew that I was there.
Yeah.
And it was like the world's most awkward dinner ever. Like both of us just sitting there having this dinner and like pretending everything was fine. And then he invited me to go like watch some fireworks with some mutual friends. And at this point I still didn't know that he had broken it off with this other girl, or maybe she had broken it off with him. I'm not sure. But then we went and we did this fireworks thing and he offered me a sweatshirt and I was like, oh, well, clearly
Sweatshirts mean one thing.
Yeah, that's right.
if he's giving me his sweatshirt, clearly this girl
I'm
is out of
wrapping
the
my
picture.
proverbial arms around you.
But I was still not really ready probably for a relationship. And then a couple weeks later, it was my birthday and he had called me and left me a voicemail. And I was like, I don't know. We should go out to dinner. I don't know about this. So I ended up agreeing to meet him for dinner. I was about 3 hours late because another mutual friend of ours was spending most of that 3 hours trying to convince me this was a terrible idea for me to even do this. And he couldn't even believe that I would entertain the idea of
Mildly berating you, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, he was still my friend, but he's like, Joel, listen, I'm Joel's friend, but it's bad news.
So I met him for dinner at an Applebee's. It's very, very romantic. And I just kind of put it all on the table. Like, if we're going to be in a relationship, it's going to be like this. These are kind of the basic rules or boundaries that I'm setting for this. And you're going to agree to these things, basically. And then it was probably within a year that we were engaged, and then another several months, and we were married.
We dated, had good dating experience for 12 months. Then I proposed to you, and then a year later, So, and that was, as I look back now, just thinking about the fact that Jackie was able to, like, I knew it was, like, when we got back together, it was like, that was serious. Like, that was serious, and I knew that there was not going to be any other option. And there couldn't be. It was just not going to be it was just not flat out responsible. So I think entering into our marriage, as with you guys, there was this level of, like, there became a moment of intentionality where this is a real thing. And and I talk with enough people that I think really struggle with I'm just thinking of a conversation I had with a person that's, right on the age that we would have been married at, and really struggling with, do I, don't I, do I propose, I'm not, how do I know this is the one, really caught up in those conversations. And I just like do you guys feel like, would you be able to identify, like, we knew, like, there was no like, ooh, is this the right choice, or was it like how was it clear to you?
I think that was why I drug my feet so long in committing to a relationship, because I knew where I was at as a person, as an individual. I wasn't in a point where I just wanted to have a relationship just to have a relationship. I wanted it to be for the long haul. And so I don't know that there's any like one thing that I could point to there. It was like, oh yeah, this is the one.
Yeah.
But I did want to make sure that I knew who Andy was before we even started dating.
Right, and that's one of the things that we did. Like, we sat you down and I said, hey, this is stuff that I struggle with. This is who I am. Like, I mean, she had a good way to know that a little bit because she knew me growing up before that. Outside of the dating relationship, she knew my cousin. But before we started dating, we sat down and talked, and we prayed about it a lot before we even started dating. Like, there was definitely pressures around us of people saying, hey, Andy and Julie. But like, we were very intentional about not just rushing into a relationship.
Yeah, and we, like Jackie and I, like our extended faith community and friends were pretty well connected with each other, and I think that was the whole process too, because they all knew the drama and the ups and downs that had gone on in our relationship previously, and so of all people, they had, I think, a right to be like, are you sure about this? Because and so it was like we didn't just get an easy pass on, this is the greatest thing ever. I mean, people were excited for us, but nevertheless, it was like I had a lot of very serious conversations with people that knew us both, and were like, now I don't know, not to say it wasn't a don't screw this up, but it was kind of a don't screw this up, conversation. Like how intentional are you? So all that to say, we as both as couples, we got married young. I mean, I was 22. Jackie was almost 23. Julie was 20. Just barely 20.
I'm old.
But you were still younger than most men are getting married. Like
right. Yeah. Overall, I think I was mid-20s.
Right. So, and I've thrown this stat out. The average age for men in America, the average age of their first marriage is 28, and then roughly 26 years old for women. So getting married at 20 or 22 is like young, or it feels young now anyway. Did you guys ever get any pushback? Like maybe for Julie, I mean, 20 years old, like I think for most, like if there are any other moms listening right now thinking about their teenage daughter, TikTok graduates high school, 20 years old or so, and looking at marriage. I mean, that would probably, my guess would be that would bring up a little anxiety.
Well, and I would say too, we dated for just under, like it was like the week before we got married was our 1 year like dating, and so we were not dating real long before we got married, and we were engaged at like 6 months, right? Or is it
somewhere
around there? So like looking back on it, it felt very fast. I don't think we felt that going into it.
At the time, it didn't feel fast, and I don't think that we received a ton of pushback, but I do know, like, especially in our extended families, no, we'll just say my extended family, there, was like is this a really good idea? But I think the people that really knew Andy and knew myself, there was never any concern. But that's also to say Andy's sister was married at 18. Okay. So for his family, it wasn't.
So we waited a long time.
Wow,
for my family.
You were really
old,
slow to the gun there, buddy. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and again, I think, I mean, if you look historically at when people were getting married, it's like, when is old enough, really? Like when is old enough to get married? When are you? Because there's certain things, I guess our experience, certain knowledge and wisdom and understandings that you only get through actually doing this dance of marriage, basically, and trying to figure it out. And so it's like, well, I probably don't want my 18-year-old son getting married at 18. I probably don't want that for him, but I probably don't want him to have to go through the difficulty that all of us have experienced with friends and family of later 20s, early 30s. The field of potential mates is narrowing and narrowing. There's just all
you
of
feel
this.
stressed to have to.
Oh my gosh! And the whole like how if any of you were to, like, let's just say that one of your spouses got hit by a truck tomorrow, God forbid, and like. Well, here's a good, interesting question. Would either of you let's talk about our death, Andy? Why don't we do that?
Sounds perfect.
Let's just go into a place where you and I are not on the face.
If we die, you have to take this podcast over.
That's right.
It'll become the dudettes, the dudettes and women.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Whatever, something. Would you guys like? Do you think you would, Jackie? Do you think you'd ever think about remarriage? I don't know if we've talked about this recently at all. I'm really throwing it out there.
I mean, the prospect of like the work of dating. That I see some of my coworkers going through does not look like anything I'd want to have to do, but also like we have a ton of kids. So if I could have somebody help me with that, I mean,
Let's just
I'm
say
saying.
that if both Joel and Andy are hit by bust, we'll just move in and raise all of the children, helping each other out.
That sounds like a great option.
I'm glad we figured this out here. Yeah.
We could really go down that road
We could.
for a long time, but
Let's
I
not.
won't.
Wow. We got
The things
we got
Sounds
edged
like
out
we've
very
got it figured
quickly.
the
out.
things that we learned on our podcast.
I know, right? We got edged out very quickly. So there's kind of like the thing about the emotional like the emotional energy. I mean, do you feel like kind of that same way?
Yeah. Like from a practicality standpoint, sure, but like, yeah, I would have a hard time wanting to just like jump back into getting to know somebody. And I think it would be really hard too because, and this might be jumping ahead of where you're at, because we got married so young. Like Andy and I say all the time, like, I didn't even know you
Right.
when we got married.
Yeah.
Like, so I would feel like I was carrying that expectation of knowing somebody that well. Like,
Yeah.
Andy and I have been married 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, to jump into another marriage, I would feel like I needed to know somebody for 15 years
Yeah.
because that's how well I knew Andy. Like, it would be really, really hard to not,
Right.
to just jump in kind of blind all over again.
I mean, guys, we're like, I think you would agree. Jake and I have talked about this. We are fundamentally not the same people we were when we got married, you know, for Jackie and I going on 14 years ago. And it's like all that work, all that work. It's just such a major investment, which, I mean, it's marriage. It should feel like it's been a major investment.
I mean, I just got Joel to realize that switching the laundry includes putting the stuff from the washer into the dryer and also putting more clothes into the washing machine. And
it's like, oh, you want me to
only
keep this
taken-
going? Oh,
It's
okay.
only taken 14 years to do that.
Hey,
So
guys, we're getting places. Yeah, thank you for that. No, I'm like, I am so great. I look now and I say I am grateful that we got married when we did, because I feel like we, number one, we did not open ourselves up to just a lot of the there's a different kind of hardship, and it's a hardship that I would not want to experience, of being a young adult into adulthood and dating. Just secondly, if I can also just say to also a practical point, but does have to do with marriage, to quote the Apostle Paul, better to marry than to burn. Like, and to try to I mean, let's just be real, to try to remain single, and just in terms of your own sexuality, like trying to navigate life, and especially in a world that is, you know, between hookup culture that is really, you think of it as a younger thing, but it's really going through all young adulthood. Like, that is just so much to try to navigate, and to meet another person that's really committed to that same thing as well seems increasingly difficult to find. And so there's kind of like there's all that relational piece of trying to navigate that, and it's like, I just look at dating now and it's like, just sounds exhausting to me, like the whole thing. So we would not have done it any, I think I can say that we would not have done it any differently.
I think one of the benefits of being married earlier, I had just graduated from college, Joel was still in college, is we did a lot of that growing up together. So it wasn't like one or the other one of us were really set in a routine or had certain ways that we really liked to go about all of the things that life entails, where we had to then figure out how to rework that, including someone in there, because it was us figuring it out together instead of like, oh, now I have to incorporate this other person into my life, and I feel like they're impeding on all of my freedoms, or they're, you know, micromanaging all of the things that I'm trying to do, or I've never had to share this space or this reality or this routine, because we were figuring it out at the same time together.
Right. I mean, I think the toughest thing was probably trying to figure out, like, okay, so for Christmas we're going to your family or my family. Like, that was the toughest thing, I think, for us. I mean, as far as like incorporating our lives together, you know, because we didn't. Again, I would say the same thing. We didn't have like a set, like, this is how I do laundry, and this is how I cook, and this is, because I don't do those things anyways. But but you know what I mean. Like, we didn't have those preset, like you said, Jackie.
Yeah, and I'm well, and like for Jackie and I lived in three different places in the first
3 months.
3 different places in the first 3 months of our marriage. The first place, we had a reservation in for an apartment that was under construction that caught fire during construction, and we were told just a week before we got married that we would not have that place to live. Moved into a house that was like a friend was moving out of, and they needed someone to kind of watch over it. But while we're on our honeymoon, it gets sold, so we come back to see that, whatever. Then we move. Oh, so there's actually 4. So then we move in with my parents, but my God bless her, my grandmother was also at that same time moving in with them because of some other really just challenging circumstances, and we made that for not very long because and that was one of the first times where Jackie had to we had to sit down, and Jackie's like, I cannot, I love your family and everything, but this rhythm, all the stress of us just trying to be adults together and to try to figure out marriage and all of that. It is a little weird when you and your wife, where your room is your high school, the room you stayed in high school, and it's weird because it's we felt like our adulthood was put on hold.
Right.
We were not actually.
Well, we had that same thing happen a little bit later. We had been living in a house for 10 years and sold it, but before we got a new house, we had to move into with her parents in the basement. So
and we took 3 kids.
And
with us.
yeah,
Oh,
so
boy,
that was a whole, because that wasn't
It's
just
hard.
like the 2 of us trying to figure out and holding our new marriage, but also having a kid and parenting, and then having grandma and grandpa and aunts around and things like that. That was tough to be parent in that same situation too. That was tough.
Yeah, and so I consider it now on the backside an incredible blessing that we were able to that. I look back now, the amount of major stressors that we were undergoing from the place where our living situation. Jackie and I. Jackie graduated in 2006. I finished school after 5-year programs for both of us, but 2008 when we graduated into a major recession. That was really, really challenging. Joel with his fancy Bible degree was not highly marketable for a professional job, and so I was bivocational for it felt like a hustle. It was a big hustle for a long time. And it felt like we were always, and this has been, I think, a thing that Jackie and I have, just recently, we're trying to get out of the mindset, and it's probably a lot on me, is this poverty mindset of we have just been making it for so long. Only in the last few years have we had only one professional job, each of us, where we weren't
Mm-hmm.
trying to piecemeal. Does it feel like I'm articulating this reasonably accurately? Yeah. And so now, here we are in our mid-30s, and it's we just now kind of feel like we are getting close to maybe being adults together, sort of. Some days more than others.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
We had mentioned our wives are doing different things professionally.
Or non-professionally.
Either way. So
Amateurly? No, I don't know what.
they're different things. My wife's a stay-at-home mom, but she's also a homeschool teacher and running a ministry. Jackie's
She also watches Molly, so
also watches
She also
your
watches
daughter.
our youngest daughter.
Right.
super helpful.
Yeah.
But then Jackie goes to work daily, out of the home. So let's talk about that and how that affects our families and how we're doing that.
Yeah. Julie, did you I probably not, but did you envision any of the components of your family structure and how you guys have arranged things?
Growing up, I always had the assumption that I was going to be a college graduate, that after that, then I would get married, and after working for a while and being a professional, then we would have a family. And so when things precipitated very quickly and just in our relationship and then in being married and then finding out that I was pregnant within that first year of marriage, there was a lot coming at me really fast.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of tears in that because I had the heart's desire that once we had children, then I would stay home. So there was a lot that I had to lay down as far as I'm not going to be college educated and I'm not going to have that work experience. But I was also so grateful that we were in a position where I could stay home with our children.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if you would have stayed in college,
I
you
would
might
never.
not have had that
I
opportunity.
never would have had that opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. really. I think that says something about our college system.
For sure.
That, like, I think growing up, we're sold that if you go to college, you're making the right choice to make yourself to give yourself a better life.
In order to be successful,
Right, you have to go to college.
have higher education.
But in reality, I'm going to be paying my student loans like until my kids go to college. So I'm not exactly sure where that where is my better life coming in?
Right. Yeah.
As a result of going to the college that I went to, which was just really expensive, and that was a poor financial choice that I had made.
Because
like when I was 18.
Back in the day,
really
they didn't have people. I mean, we are the which I'm not saying necessarily that we experience any predatory lending, but it was back in the day. There was a lot less transparency about what that loan structure was going to look like, what the actual sum total, all said and done, what it was going to look like for you to have to pay those loans back. And
let's be honest, 18-year-olds don't have the ability to grasp what it means to
especially
be paying on a loan for the next 55 years.
And none of our parents, even my parents are both college graduates, but none of them obviously were going to college in like their college experience and all the financial pieces and all that were light years different than what we're experiencing. And I even think of the rate of like when I started at Cornerstone University in 2013. It was all said and done, I was paying $19,000 a year to go to school. When I finished 4 years later, after I transferred to Bethel, what is now Bethel University, it was pushing $27,000 a year. So it over the course, like it's $8,000 more over that course of time. It just seems, and like that has continued on. Like it's not. You just couldn't wrap your head around what the implications of all that were going to be. And once you get on the college train, like it's like I better get this degree because if I get all this debt, like
how am I going to pay for it?
Because I remember Jackie thought about transferring at one point, and there was different things that we had talked about, but it's like you're so far down the hole. So that being said, I think if I can articulate this correctly, Jackie has often felt like she could maybe professionally be in a similar situation that she is now professionally without the education that you got. Is that fair?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that are in my position that don't have the same education that I do.
Yeah. But then I think you've also said you didn't know if I would marry you if you hadn't gone to college.
Well, I guess there's that too.
Which I don't know.
Right, that's hard to say.
I don't know
because we weren't at a place probably then.
Yeah.
Graduating into a recession also not helpful. Our generation, like myself, I graduated in 2006, so the recession was just kind of ramping up, but like jobs were already starting to go cold at that point. To be able to find something so I was working 2 jobs when I graduated from college. In those first years of marriage while Joel was finishing his degree. So myself and probably the next several years after me, it's actually that group of folks will never catch up financially to the generation that's graduating now financially. Right. We will always be considerably behind just because of that recession.
You started off with, it was a professional office job, but it was what, $10? It was like $10 an hour?
Yeah, I started at $10 an hour, graduating from college.
Yeah. And then working at was it Bed Bath and were you Bed Bath and Beyond too? Was that
Bed Bath and Beyond?
Oh yes. So I remember like going and
Egyptian cotton towels, man.
I'm telling you, those were the days though.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I loved is that whenever there was a good clearance item, like Jackie was on it. Like we got some nice knives.
Bed Bath and Beyond was not. Yeah, it was a good place to work.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something.
It's just funny you remember the things you remember. I remember sitting late at night, it's like 11 o'clock at night to pick her up from work in an empty parking lot, and it's just like those images that I have of our early days.
And I think too that maybe being younger when we got married helps some of those things too, because we had the energy to go wait in the parking lot at 11 o'clock when you get off or whatever. Running around doing all of these things, having 2 young boys in our case at the time, like we were fairly young and married when we had both of our kids, and like
2 of our kids. mean, both is
Yes.
Both at that time. That's
there's
what I
more
mean.
there's more than those.
There
two,
is
but
more than those two, but I mean, like
At the time,
there was
I
There were
those
two
two.
little dudes.
I just know that Reagan is listening to this, and she will correct you. That's all.
She's gonna give me a hard
Looking
time
out for
anyways
you.
because I can't remember her birthday. But that's besides the point.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So yeah, like I think that being young helps that
Yeah.
out.
We didn't know what we didn't know, and that was maybe helpful. But yeah, I just it seems like there's a lot of, and maybe Julie, you just touched on this a little bit, but there is this increased desire of like, I'm going to live my life, and then I'm going to allow marriage to interrupt that later at some point, versus I think being married can actually, if we do it right, if we're faithful, prayerful, if we're all of those things, can actually bring a gift into my life sooner, and I can actually grow as a person in light of that. Like, that's the thing. Like, I am, like we said, fundamentally different people. I would definitely, the ways that I have matured as a person apart from marriage, I don't think it happens. I have met people that are my age right now where it's like there's maturity issues in their life, and it's because relationally they've made choices to like not have to submit their life to the needs of other, whether both children and in marriage, they've not had to submit their life to the needs of other people.
Let's just say it would also be fashionably bad too, because I'd probably still be wearing my green combat boots, right, Julie?
Right.
And maybe how long did he wear the fireman's coat for?
For way too long.
Listen.
I think that we actually moved that coat, so it's only been within the last 5 years that we've.
In my defense, the fireman's coat was warm. It was nice.
Buddy, I know there were a lot of practical reasons. There's a lot of practical reasons for it. So, listeners, you should also know this, that Julie and I have had several conversations. I think it's going to happen eventually, where someday I take Andy out.
I'm waiting for the day.
And we do like because here's the deal. He's well groomed right now. So I feel like that's so grateful. Thank you, Concrete Barber. He's well groomed right now. I think here's my goal, Julie. I'm just gonna put it out here. A sports coat in his future.
Please.
Like that'd be the day.
Bring it on.
Oh, here we go. So, I'm just saying, Andy, it's because I care.
I love you, Joel.
But yes, there are things obviously that here we go. Let's do this. What would you say, ladies? What would you say? There's one thing like in our personalities that has like significantly shifted for the better in our time being married. Like something maybe that you got to go back into the deep recesses of your mind, of something that just drove you about us, that just drove you nearly nuts when we were first married, that maybe it's softened, maybe it's altogether disappeared, whatever the case might be.
I don't know that it drove me nuts as much as Andy is very much an extrovert and I am very much an introvert. And so
Same.
Yeah. So
Same here.
So the early days of our marriage, I think Andy felt like we had to be like go, go, go all the time, doing something, being with somebody. And I was like, whoa, like we have a house that we can just chill at and we don't actually have to do anything. And so as much as I'm glad that he's kind of chilled out about that, I'm glad that he has forced me to like get out of the house.
Well, and I would say likewise too. I mean, it's opposite because now there's times that I'm like, can we just stay home? I'm tired of moving around. But like, so there is definitely that where we've kind of both grown to appreciate the other part of it.
And I find that dynamic really interesting with the two of you, because now both your personal, your ministry life and your professional life are more private and removed. And then Julie has much more into the public sphere, like speaks in front of large groups of people regularly and all those sort of things. And so it's like this interesting,
semi-regularly.
Julie,
occasionally.
if when I talk about you to other people, it's like, yeah, she's filling rooms all the time with
well, thank you.
highly sought after conference speakers, just like the next step. So yeah, like things have shifted for you guys personally, and I'm just wondering if that's like you've brought that out in each other.
I think so.
To a significant
Yeah, I think
point.
so.
So now, if you could only see Jackie's expression, like she's really searching for
YouTube.com. Or no, dudesanddadspodcast.com/YouTube will take you to our YouTube channel so you can see Jackie.
all the nonverbal. So, like, am I the same 22-year-old boy that you married?
I'm not really good at remembering like how terrible
you were
used to be, I guess. I mean, I resonate kind of with Julie where she was saying the introvert extrovert thing. I mean, we had people in and out of our house probably for the first 5 years of our marriage endlessly. Joel also can make a new best friend like every 3 weeks, which then comes like a whole new circle of friends every 3 weeks. And sometimes it's like, but I just started liking the last group of friends and now we have a new group of friends. What happened to the old? Some of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then I also think we both came from, I think we thought we came from really similar family backgrounds. But as we got further into marriage, we realized that they were actually pretty different financially. So that was some difficulties that we had to work through. And then just in like how my parents interact is really different than how Joel's parents interact.
Sure.
So there was a lot of expectations that each of us was bringing to the relationship that we had to kind of work through. Like my parents do a lot of stuff together. Like if my mom goes to the store, my dad probably is going to go too, just because that's just how it's always been. Joel's parents do a lot of things. They do a lot of things together, but they do a lot of things separate as well. So Joel
they have specific separate activities.
So I had all these assumptions of what I was expecting Joel to do, but then he wouldn't necessarily do those things. And then I think there was some points of
come on, guys.
Difficulty
Non-verbalized expectations in marriage have seldom ever happens.
Right. So different things like that. I came from a big family. Joel comes from a smaller family. So even with our kids, Joel only has a brother. I have 3 sisters. So I come from a family I know what that life is. So I feel a little bit, I knew what we were getting into with 4 kids. Joel really didn't know.
I did not know.
I'm still not sure if Joel knows
I did not know
what it takes to run like
the crazy train
a home with 4 kids. So that's something that we're always just continuing to grow and improve. Work through.
Andy,
even just this morning, working through some of those things.
Yeah. Andy and I have said, I think to each other, like there's like Andy and I have regular. So let's be interested to see how you feel, and because I know there's this whole mom guilt thing about raising children and whatever, but like Andy and I have said regularly, like we are concerned that we're like unbeknownst to us, like we're screwing our children up big time at any given point. Like we have there's this anxiety about it, like that we're doing things or saying things or not saying things that we ought to. How would you voice that kind of that tension and that anxiety in your own life with kids?
I think going back to like the working or staying home thing probably it's different but the same piles of mom guilt that come with that. So I work, I have a sales position and I probably work typically probably 45 to 50 hours a week. Over the summer, it was closer to between 50 and 60 hours a week. So I work a lot, which puts a lot back on Joel's plate for picking up some of those pieces. So then most of my mom guilt comes from not giving my kids probably the experience that I was given growing up. My mom mostly stayed home. She occasionally worked different jobs or at the school, so we would still see her. She usually was home when we got home from work. She got home from work like usually when we were getting home from school, so she was there a lot to do a lot of the mom things. We did. I was pretty. I'm not sure what the word is. She always had fun things for us to do. Like we were constantly doing like crafts and activities and going places and baking things and that kind of stuff. And I feel like my kids miss out on that since I'm working a lot, which is just kind of the demands of the job that I'm in right now. It's a good job, work for some good folks, but it does take a lot of emotional energy and physical time. I'm gone from 7 in the morning until probably 6 every day. And then obviously they're going to bed at 8. So that's like 10 hours a week during the week that like I even get to see them, other than in the morning when I'm just yelling at them to get dressed so we can go to school. But that there's a lot of mom guilt with that time that I'm missing from them. So I would say I feel like they're getting a little bit of the short end of the mom opportunities stick. So then there's a lot of pressure on the weekends to try and make up for all of that time. But there's also like, all of the normal job, house maintenance kind of things that
which I think
fall in
identifies
line.
maybe what some of the tensions are between you and I, where it's like what I need or what I feel like I need from our weekends is definitely it overlaps with Jackie some, but it is definitely in a certain way different than what you feel like you need in a weekend in terms of what you want to accomplish, what.
Well, I think what I need in a weekend is different than what's available in a weekend, because you still have to do all of the things, like all of the laundry and all of the dishes and endless crumbs on the floor. Like it feels like all of the time not at work is just spent like maintaining and keeping the ball rolling to get to the next day. So you're constantly just like, you're only just managing the next fire. You're never looking further down.
Well, and I would
road.
even say sometimes for me that feels like that, even though you're at home, Julie, like it feels like I come home, we eat dinner, and then I'm doing the dishes for the next 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then it's time for bed. Like even for me, like I think that I sometimes feel like that too, where I don't have enough time with my family. So
yeah. And the thing is that and just knowing that most kids spell love T-I-M-E. I mean, that is a primary way in which they're experiencing how we feel about them. So it and I wish Jackie and I have talked so many times, like we will talk interesting scenarios about how we could address, where we feel like we're falling short or whatever, but it feels like there are definitely some parameters or lack of solutions. At least at this season, we have young children. But so Julie, so for you, your daily rhythm at home with kids, all of that is different
different and yet still so the same.
Interesting.
I mean, this is like this past week has been this idea that my kids are never going to see the fun side of mom, because we are schooling 6 hours out of the day. And those hours, and that I'm not schooling, I'm committing to running a ministry, to keeping up with laundry. And I mean, Andy already said he does the dishes. So I'm not like, I can't even get to that. And literally the only time that I have to just be either by myself or to do something fun with my kids is the 30 minutes that he's doing the dishes. And honestly, by that time of the day, I'm like, I need to take a break. And so, like it's the struggle is real of like, what are my kids going to remember of their childhood? Are they going to remember mom that was crawling down their neck to finish their math work and go take your laundry to the basement or, whatever. Like, it's different from Jackie's and yet still so much the same.
Yeah. I
definitely think Julie's stay at home is not typical.
No,
She's
right.
spending a lot of hours on her Hope Mommy stuff, let's not discount all of the things that Julie does to make life go around. And just because she's home, she still is maintaining like 40 hours towards other things that people are taking from her in her time, for sure.
Andy and Julie, how have you guys figured out when you're dividing up the tasks of the home, and like who does what and what, like do you got a system for that, or it's like who's gonna you roll the dice, who's gonna put out the fire for this thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's kind of a give and take. I mean, we kind of have our chores that are our chores, if you will. Like, I'm the one doing the dishes a good majority of the time. However, there have been times that I've come home and Julie's done them. Same, likewise, she's mostly doing the laundry, But there are times that we sit down in the evening and we fold them together, or, you know, she's gone to do Hope Mommy stuff and I'm doing that while we're hanging out with the kids. And so, like, we have I would say our own chores, but at the same time, there's still a give and take as far as what happens. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, the laundry basket's sitting there unfolded, I'm not going to touch it because it's Julie's job. But I would say we kind of just, you know, would you say we've kind of
yeah,
negotiated?
I don't know that we've like had a conversation where we're like, well, you're going to do this and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's just been kind of like it's evolved to that over time, but also to Andy's credit, he is the most laid back person in the world. And so if I'm getting uptight about something needing to be done, I'm not always the most gracious about, hey, will you help me? I could really use some help. It's not that nice usually. But he will do anything that I ask. He is an Enneagram 2 to his core. So whatever he can do to help.
Jackie's really upset about this Enneagram 2 thing because Andy and I are both 2s, right? But Jackie will say up and down that she does not, I'm just going to say this, she does not experience me as a strong helper. My awarenesses about, my awarenesses about some of those daily things of like what need to get done are not great.
Well, I wonder if a lot of that is because your two-ness is coming out in seeing things around you, like, oh, Andy needs this or so-and-so needs this,
right.
Whereas Jackie's with you all the time, so it's easy to push off, like, oh, Jackie needs something, but like I'm going to come home later.
Yeah, because in part, like, which is part of the deal, is that like the things that we have around our house, it's just like when Jesus said the poor will always be with you. For me, it's like the laundry will always be with. Like and I'm not saying that. I think just subconsciously that's in my mind where it's just like this is an ongoing thing. We're never going to conquer this beast until my doggone kids can learn to do their own laundry and fold it and put it away by themselves.
Never gonna happen.
Which just based upon how I was in high school, the chances of that happening are like a snowball's chance in Hades. So I just like coming to terms with those realities too. But like it's something that somewhere between my own unawareness, a mixture between my own unawareness and my own selfishness somewhere in there, that's just part of the struggle of, and in my mind, like a lot of the things, so like me mowing the lawn, Jackie would recognize that like, okay, that has to get done, but on the priority list, it's like super, super low. Like I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she'd be like, if the grass got like 6 inches tall, she'd be like, not DEFCON 5, right?
The kids can play hide and seek.
Right. Yeah. Whereas with me, I'm like, this is a legit concern because it's going to get this getting out of control is going to create a whole other like that's how I think about it. A whole other domino effect of other things that are going to be And so we get stressed about different tasks in different ways, and are probably not always terribly together on how we see the priority. Though right now I have like a light fixture that I need to change out in our dining room. It's a pretty high, like a reasonably high priority to me. What would you say for you? Is that like also?
I mean, that's probably because it's pretty
because it's dark in there,
the dining
right?
room when we're trying.
So
to
every
eat
once
dinner,
in a while, we do intersect on like what we both recognize needs to get done.
We've also
quickly.
had it for a week though, and it's still sitting in the box, and it'll probably sit there for weeks more until we can find time to actually dedicate to that.
Yeah, I had a real dream that it would happen today, and it certainly hasn't happened yet. But
we're busy podcasting today.
Yeah, this was the priority.
Joel and I actually had an interesting conversation this morning in preparation for this podcast.
That did not turn into a fight. I feel like we really navigated that well.
So one thing that I remember from our marriage counseling very early on, before we got married, went through like premarital counseling and
which you people should do. Those of you that are thinking about getting married or whatever, put the time in. Don't just hire Reverend so-and-so down the corner to marry you. Put the time in because we learned things.
Yeah. So one of the things that I remember, I think we both thought that we were like very open to who did what job and that we weren't stuck to these like traditional gender roles. Like, no, we're both going to be helpers and commit to this. And then in this assessment, it really comes out that like Joel has very deeply ingrained in him like very traditional gender roles. Not that he is unwilling to work outside of those, but like that's just ingrained in him. So whereas I come home from work and immediately see the giant disaster in front of me that is our home, like that being my number one priority, it's Joel's like number 5 priority, because he doesn't actually without realizing it, or if he's not being super I can't even think of the word right now. If he's not paying attention to, you know, these things, he doesn't even see that that's something that needs to be done, because it's not, quote, like it's not his job. Not that he's saying he's not going to do it, but he just doesn't see it as a priority of something that would be something for him to take care of. Whereas since he gets home from work sooner than I do, in my mind, it's like, well, you get home first, so you should manage these things.
Right.
Or your job has a little bit more flexibility. My job is not flexible really at all. It's pretty difficult to not do all of the things that that are entailed in the time frame that it allows. It's difficult to take time off. So a lot of the typical, quote, female gender role chores fall to Joel, but he doesn't necessarily even realize that I have, in my mind, I've placed all of these on him. So that's kind of something that we're still trying to figure out.
We're working. I mean, that's something that we are definitely working at. Like we talk about laundry all the time. Obviously, with a family of 6, the amount of laundry that is generated
is ridiculous. Like when I look at our laundry room after like we have exhausted most of our clean clothes, you're just like, this is almost feels insurmountable. Like to look at it feels almost insurmountable, right?
It's Mount Everest.
Yeah, it's amazing. and then for me it's like I guess I'm just I feel probably pretty overwhelmed by the fact of like being able to figure out because I want to apply a system to figuring out how it can never get this bad again. Like I want to do that, and yet like it's incredibly I think it's just incredibly difficult, you know,
Because it's more than a one-person job.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for us, like I think I've gotten better at seeing things around the house and that need to be done and just doing them. I think, but I mean, that's, would you say that?
I think so. And I think for then me personally, like I'm a lot like you, Joel, where I want a system for everything. I want to know that there's a protocol for everything. And so getting my head wrapped around the idea of seasons. Yeah. And so, yes, I would really love for all of my laundry to stay clean all the time. But for this season, that's not possible. And so in this season, what can I do to at least alleviate a little bit of the pressure from myself, from Andy, from our family?
Yep.
That's really revolutionized kind of the way that I go about the things that need to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing is what I don't want for Jackie is for her to feel that like wall of crazy, that wall of crazy that she walks into at the end of a day after dealing with, you know, who knows what else. If I could just, and part of it is if I could just have the kids not create messes while I'm trying to pick up the other, like that's the other thing that drives me crazy, is because if I'm down in the laundry room doing work, I cannot actually see what they're doing upstairs above when they're claiming to be, behaving properly. And just like the other day, Jackie came home and she asked me she asked me the question that I swore I will never ask her, and I probably have, but she's like, "What?" She just asked me, "What did you do? What did you do today?" and I just said, I was like, in that moment, because I had been working on laundry all day, I had some parent emails and things to get out that I was, and Molly was with me all day that day, so every moment she's like, "Hey, Dad, hey, Dad, no, I'm trying to finish this." It was all I could do to get accomplished what I did, and yet still I'm like, I don't feel very accomplished. I feel like made it through, got a few things done, wanted to do way more. And this is, this part, like, Jackie is a list maker upon list makers. And this is the other thing where I think I've given up on lists, because then it's just a reminder to me of all the stuff that didn't happen. But yeah, like, this is a season where I'm really trying to, garner my expectations a little bit. I don't know about lower the bar, but it's like figure that out in a different sort of way. Because as I was talking to one of our staff members here at the church, our good friend Sebastiano, I was having like an official
our armchair expert,
our armchair expert to the Dudes and Dads podcast. I was kind of like saying, like, I just said, it's like, dude, I don't feel in these areas that I'm thriving right now. Like, I'm not hitting anything out of the park in terms of how we're running our family or anything like that. And he just looked at me and goes, thriving means a lot of different things in different seasons of life. He's like, however he said it, it was like, he goes, dude, your kids are not living out on the street here. Like, let's keep it in perspective. Because from him, who's someone who is 61 years old and has gone through the whole thing of having, several kids, and it was for him a blended family, but it was like several kids go through the house and still have a teenager at home. He's like, you guys are doing great. Because he's like, I remember what it was like when, whatever. And for us that are in it right now, it's just like, I don't know what we expect of ourselves, but like, it feels like regularly we're not measuring up. We're not, which is why we have these conversations, which is why it's helpful to be like, oh, you too? Yeah.
Right.
Regardless of what we see on social media or whatever, of these, I don't know, families that are just killing it. They packed everything up in an RV. They're traveling across the country.
How do those people even get paid?
I don't know.
I'm just confused.
We'll talk offline because it's a future goal.
We're going to start. This podcast is going on the road. Jayco's just down the road. I'm sure they want to rent out.
They can sponsor the show.
They can sponsor the show. Why not?
I feel like my wheels are turning.
Oh boy.
All right.
This could be amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Jayco needs a podcast, and
There
we
we
could
go.
be it.
There we go.
And they could pay us to take their trailers on the road.
It's beautiful.
Perfect.
Let's go.
All right.
I'm quitting my job tomorrow.
Thanks ahead of time.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, hey, ladies, we thank you guys for being on the show today. We wanted to get you guys on the show for a while. We were going to do it a while ago and forgot to check with you and just scheduled this because that's kind of how we are.
Which is a whole other separate issue
Yeah,
that
but
we've had to
we thank
address.
you guys for coming on tonight. But before we leave,
Yes.
we need to do.
Now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
Bingo.
Julie thought she was going to get out of this.
No, I just forgot about it.
That's the beautiful
Not that
part.
we don't listen diligently every single time.
That's the part, though,
obviously.
is the fact that do you have a list, or are we just going to
We're going to go off the cuff. And
I
actually,
love
I think
it.
the best way that we should do this is I'm going to ask your wife the questions and
Beautiful.
you're going to ask mine.
Perfect.
Just because.
Yeah,
so-
that'll feel more organic.
Right. So you can go first if you want to.
Totally organic.
Oh, good.
Okay, here we go, Julie. In no specific order, your favorite food dish to eat, not prepare yourself, but like if you can like pick a thing that you want to eat, what's the go-to?
The Chief peanut butter ice cream.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's actually a great choice. That's a good choice.
All right, Jackie, what is your favorite thing to do on a date?
Oh, that's a really good question. We don't get a lot of dates times usually whenever we are without our kids.
It's
It's
at the
because
grocery store.
yeah, exactly. It's because we have something else that we have to do or a meeting that needs to be attended or something like that. So we don't. So probably we just end up going out to dinner. But I think
We had breakfast this morning because we were alone, and we bought fluorescent light bulbs. So it was a real nice
storage
So
containers.
fluorescent.
So
and storage containers.
yeah, but probably just like a day where we could just go and do whatever we wanted. I think antiquing is fun. We've done some of that before
Yeah.
when we've had like time to just like wander around and look at other people's old stuff.
It's fun.
So
Good.
that's kind of interesting. Something
Awesome.
I like to do.
Okay, Julie, I want you to go back to, let's go early high school, favorite band in early high school.
Oh, man. Early high school would probably have to be U2.
Wonderful. That's a
You're so progressive.
so progressive.
Goo Goo Dolls. It's a toss-up.
Oh, yes.
It's a toss-up.
Beautiful choice.
All right,
Next up.
I'm stealing Joel's question on this one. Favorite love song?
Favorite love song? I don't even know if I know any love songs.
I want you to
I was
remember.
afraid I was getting that question.
You still might.
Wasn't there like that song in 6th grade that everyone used to dedicate to their girlfriend in the 6th grade newspaper? Something about On Bended Knee. I'm not really
Down
sure.
on Bended Knee by Boys to Men.
Maybe that's what
Oh.
it is. Yeah.
Off their album
I don't
2,
actually
which
know
was
that
the first
song.
CD that I ever got. Just
Joel,
saying.
wow, I thought I knew you, but I
Hey, I know.
I learned things about you in the pop quiz.
That's beautiful.
We also played that Brown Eyed Girl song at our wedding, which was
Van Morrison. Fantastic.
that's who sings that.
Yeah,
I don't
Brown
know.
Eyed Girl. Yeah. Well, there was you also had the Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def
Oh.
Leppard, which was also an interesting.
That was my love song in our very first. I mean, that was the one that I answered when we did the very first
Yes,
episode
that's
of
right.
Dudes and Dads Pod. That's what I answered was
That's
mine.
right.
Just
That's
because
good.
it was the first thing that came to my head, not because it actually is.
Yeah. Julie, this is another question we'd like to ask. If you weren't if you weren't vocationally doing in the realm of your work, if you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what would you be doing instead?
I have a heart for history, so
Yeah.
I'd be working in a national park somewhere, teaching.
I just looked at those
history.
employment opportunities. I think you have to move really far away.
Yeah. It's not super practical, but
Now you know what Jackie's doing. Looking for national park job openings.
She was doing that as we're recording
Yes.
the podcast.
That was
Beautiful.
after spring break. I was like,
Oh,
this
yeah.
would be kind of neat to do. But
Yeah. Cool.
All right, so Jackie. Oh man, I'm trying to. So, what was the first thing? Like, how did Joel ask you on your first date? Like, official date. How did he ask you?
well, I think prom was our first official date.
So, how do you ask you to prom?
I think I asked him to prom
Oh.
because of the short guy situation.
Yeah.
So I think I was like, "Hey man, do me a solid."
It was very like bro to bro.
He was also like
conversation.
dating like 2 or 3 other girls at
Two,
the same time because
right.
it's
Two.
like super
Only 2
Joel,
more.
high school Joel
Come
was
on.
kind of like that. So when he said he didn't date a lot of girls in high school, I'm not really sure what
I was wondering
he's
that
talking
too.
about because I'm pretty sure there was
They're calling you
more
out
than
during
a
this quiz,
few.
Joel.
I mean, I could just think of a few.
A good hand. Maybe it was just
A
they were
good-
all at the same
right.
time that made
It's
it.
possible.
They dated all at the
Kind of.
same
Can I
time.
just say that I love Joel, but high school Joel holds a very special place in my heart. Just-
Again, I just want to reiterate: we're very different people, very different people than we were back then. Let's see, Julie, if you could, let's see, this is an easy one. If you could, okay, if you could, we'll do the dinner. The dinner with someone either living or dead. If you could have dinner with somebody, who would it be?
It's a tough one.
Other than Jesus, I feel like we have to
Right,
we have to just to put it out there.
Somebody that I've never met before.
Or maybe you have met.
I mean, if
before.
it's somebody living or dead, I would love to have dinner with my grandma one more time.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
a really great response. Yeah, she was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
All right, Jackie. Favorite color?
I think red.
Okay.
Red's my favorite color. I was just looking at a new red winter hat, and then I was like, I don't actually wear winter hats, so I don't need to buy this one just because it's red.
But maybe you will.
But maybe if I had the right hat, then I would wear a hat.
you won't know until you try.
I probably should buy it.
Yep.
Anyone, LL Bean has a nice red hat. You can mail it to me.
There we go. Julie, I feel like I should know maybe the answer to this. Like your favorite hobby.
Just
Do you have
one.
time for hobbies?
Yeah.
in
I
your
mean,
free
if,
time?
okay, we'll put it this way. If I had
If you had a
time for
hobby,
a hobby.
perfect.
If I
Great.
had time, I would read.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love to read. I like to hike. I can't just name one.
Problem is, we live in the wrong state.
Read
for
while
hiking.
hiking.
There we go.
That seems safe.
I mean,
Audiobook,
in Indiana, you might be able to.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to
That's
look
not
out
a lot
for.
of change.
All right, so this is my last one because I'm running out of things since I didn't write it down. Jackie, what's your Enneagram number?
My Enneagram number is a 7, which brings about a lot of the reasons that I feel towards Joel.
Why? I want to
The
know
way
why
that I
Joel's
do.
shaking his head.
Joel, why are you shaking your
No,
head?
she is total. Okay, first of all, we've been on a real journey for her to actually own her 7-ness.
So you're proud of her for
I'm
saying
glad she
she's a
said it
7.
on record. Yeah, that's really great. But like, yet the issues, the relational issues that exist between 2s and 7s are very, very significant. Very significant.
Like Joel says, I'm a list maker, and I really like making. And it's not the 7 that makes the lists. It's about the accomplishment of the list, or the proposed accomplishment of the list. So then I always just want to fill all of the time with all of the things, which then doesn't help with all of the other things because I constantly feel trapped in all of the things as well. There's just a lot that goes into being a 7 that has responsibilities, because who wants that?
I also really struggle with the fact that Jackie has a lot of negative feelings about having negative feelings, which is also part of a set, like part of the 7
Absolutely.
deal. And when she recognizes that she's having negative feelings, it gets really intense, especially if you're trying to talk through what those are, because she, in general, I should say, depending on the circumstance, but oftentimes feels like she wants out of that, like whatever place that she's in, she feels like she wants out of it now. And it's not oftentimes we can get out of it like right now. So my last question to Julie, what because we've been talking about numbers and it's so revealing, what's your Enneagram number?
I am a 9, wing 8.
Oh,
She brings the wings in.
she brings the wing.
I feel like for me that's significant.
Yeah.
Being a 9 who is the peacemaker, but I'm also, there's that 8 that I'm the challenger. So
And
I want to fight about something, but I don't know what. I want everybody to be okay about it.
And I find it interesting you as an eldest child being a 9 too, because usually that's reserved for the middle, somewhere in the middle.
I think that just means that you're the 9, wing 8, because everyone should just listen to what you told them to do, and then everything should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, that works.
Yeah. Interesting. Good.
Well, guys, we thank you for being on the show on this episode.
Andy, we're super lucky. And again, these women across this table are have everything to do with who we are now. They have everything to do with
where we're becoming.
what we're becoming. Absolutely.
And again, the reason this show exists.
And the reason the show exists, really. So no pressure to any of you, but you're kind of a big deal. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. If you have feedback about this show, we would love to hear it. You can call 574-213-8702 or email it to dudesanddadspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the Dudes and Dads podcast. If you have not subscribed to the show, make sure you search for Dudes and Dads podcast in your favorite podcast application. If you enjoy the show, please give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcast from.
Well, friends, until next time, we appreciate you listening. So this is us signing off. Grace and peace.